Now we are recording.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm the Trista of the day. I'm a little nervous being Trista. My name is Diane McCaskey, and I'm the Executive Director of Family Promise of Coastal Alabama, and we provide emergency shelter services to families with children. Additionally, we provide some other services, transitional housing, a new program called Shelter Diversion. And today I'm with some guests, and we'll be talking about representation. And we've all met together briefly to talk about representation just a few weeks ago, but today we're going to be focusing specifically on representation in literature. And we have some folks here who know very much about what they are talking about. They're involved in this kind of work all the time, not just social justice work, but handling books, writing books, helping people find books that speak to them. And so I want to ask you to welcome them with me. First, I want to introduce you to Brittanie Edmond. Brittanie is the teen librarian at the Mobile Public Library. She's a dedicated professional with a background in library and information science. She graduated from the University of Southern Mississippi with a bachelor's degree in 2014 and a master's in 2018. Originally from California and raised in Mississippi, Brittanie joined the Mobile Public Library in January 2020, where she engages and empowers young minds. Her unwavering commitment to fostering education and cultivating a thriving community underscores her invaluable contributions to the region's welfare and growth. Beyond her work, she enjoys crochet, cross-stitch, reading, and exploring new recipes. And I wanted to read that because I think that's a great bio, really speaking to why she is a very relevant speaker for our panel today. And I also want to introduce you to panelist Tejuania Nelson. And Tejuania has, for over 25 years, been a driving force in serving children and families as the Director of Education at Lighthouse Academy. Her leadership spans 5 child care centers in Mobile and Baldwin County and is supported by state and federal funding. Beyond traditional education, Tejuania empowers her staff with life success skills, including leadership, financial literacy, and self-care. Her centers, even partnered with the Save the Children and UNICEF after Hurricane Katrina, earned her recognition and a Capitol Hill invite to advocate for affected children. And she is an author. And this is Tejuania's book. It is available on Amazon. It's called Born to Love, and it has beautiful animation. And I'm going to let her talk a little bit about how this book came to be. Before we get started, just one more thing. These panelists today, they work primarily with teens and children, and not all of our programs focus on teens and children. I run a shelter that serves children and their families, but I feel like this topic is important and relevant to everybody because we're going to be talking about representation in literature, period, just with a focus on children. And I feel as though the more literate we become by consuming literature that is diverse, we become better leaders. We get a full picture of the people that we're serving. We get a full picture of what leadership looks like when it's conducted by people from different backgrounds. So I welcome you today, and let's get started. Brittanie, can we start with you, please, ma'am? Or actually, let's start with both of you. What is representation in literature exactly, in your opinion?
Would you like to go first, or would you like me to? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I can go.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I believe in literature, and I love that title, representation. I love that. I believe you can't be what you can't see. And, children, especially children of color, and that not just talking about African-American children, just children of color, things that they want to be, different, different occupations that they would like to be. They cannot be that if they don't see that. So I believe we should put it in books.
Thank you. Brittanie, do you have anything to add to that?
I agree entirely. I also believe that representation in literature and other media helps people, what was I thinking? It doesn't just help them see themselves in it, but other people see them in it as well, so that it expands their acknowledgement that other people are of equal importance to them, that because they're more exposed to them. Sometimes people just live in smaller communities or very isolated groups, and they don't see other people within their community. So exposing them through literature and media is super important.
Well said. Well said. As a librarian, what role do you think librarians have in safeguarding their patrons from material that some people might consider to be inappropriate?
Okay, so librarians and libraries everywhere are collections of knowledge and stories that people want and need. Where safeguarding them is important, but not as important as letting them find out for themselves what they want and need. We're guides, not monitors. So what someone might consider inappropriate isn't the same for everyone. So we safeguard it by looking at the entire situation instead of just one little part of it. Like, this book offended you because it made you feel bad, but this book also helps people realize that this situation has happened to other people. It helps them heal from their trauma. It helps them expand their knowledge of the world in general. So we safeguard knowledge by just not accepting at face value or someone's one opinion in a small pie that it's inappropriate. It's because it may not be, or it may just only be inappropriate for you. I'm getting off track, sorry.
I think you're very much on target. I really appreciate what you're saying about this, because I feel like it's really even brave of the two of you to come and talk with us today, because this is kind of a hot button issue in a way. It kind of has been popping up in the news because of some things that have been happening in other states.
Yes, and it's been terrifying as a librarian to see libraries targeted with hate because we won't remove material or because we are guarding the material. And some just closing because the community and the government aren't supporting them in that mission. And we have been the target of some book ban requests recently. We did not acknowledge them. Well, I'm not gonna say we didn't not acknowledge them. We did acknowledge the request to remove the material, and then it was just funny to me because the people who had put in the request to ban the materials hadn't even read the material. So it's mind-boggling to me as a librarian who loves books and literature and knows that it's so important that people want to take some away just because of someone else's opinion without even informing them. So
Yeah. Tawana, switching up a little bit, can you tell us about how you came to write your book? Tell us
Well,
what it's about, maybe.
it is a Born to Love. It celebrates the rich cultural diversity of children in their communities. And it's a story of how children and families are united by love. Book writing was not on my things to do list, but as a child care provider, I've seen over the years that I've developed many gifts just by being in this industry. And I have a love for books, and my love for books come from my family. My dad, growing up in the home with my parents, he had a library in the house. He had a study, and he had this whole library of books. And we had encyclopedias, we had books, there were Bibles, there were dictionaries. I mean, just any type of book you could name was on that shelf. Now, there was not a lot of representation in those books back then because I'm 48. I didn't see a lot of that because I can remember, but we had the books, we had access to it. And, as I got older, I put a library in my house for my children. And now my daughter's 28. She have a library in her house for her kids. So I think it's important to not only have representation, but children need books. I see children that come in my programs, they tear them up. They're not from, you can tell a child that haven't really handled a book. I love books. I love children's books. I'm grown and I have all children's books at home. So when children come to my program, I start them off with a little library. I give them 3 books when they come. And then we start building on their library just to give them access. And because you've got to have the book, before the representation comes. So I wrote the book so children could see themselves. I did not write the book just for African American children. I wrote the book for children of color, all children, but specifically children of color, because I didn't want to have a book just for Black kids. I wanted a book where a little Hispanic boy, a little Hispanic girl could open that book and see their favorite meal in that book. That I wanted everyone, all the cultures to enjoy it, because I grew up seeing that. I grew up very involved in the Asian community, in the Hispanic community, because my dad was a boat builder. He was an engineer. So we had different people at our house all the time because my dad was building boats for them. So I was exposed to different foods they were bringing over. I got to go to their house. So a lot of kids aren't that fortunate, but everyone I saw when I was 8 and 9 years old, you can see them in my book. You can see their foods in my book. So that was one of the reasons.
That's a wonderful story. Thank you. Thank you. I should have had a poll in the meeting today, so that anybody who feels like it's a sin to dog ear a book or tear it up, let's vote. I don't dog ear my pages, but thank you for sharing that. So your research basically came from your childhood. Was there anything additionally that you had to do to get what you needed for this book, or it basically just came from your personal experience?
It come from my personal experience and just being in this field. You just develop things that you didn't think you have. And I didn't know I could write a book or become an author, but if you work with children, you can pretty much do anything. That's my take on that. But nothing additional. The book was written during a time when the Ukraine war started. I would like to share that. When the Ukraine war started, we found an illustrator. I was trying to find a local illustrator, but that didn't work out. So we found an illustrator in the Ukraine, and she started working on the book. And once the war started, I was like, oh gosh, her city got bombed. And I was like, that's it for that book. So I thought I was going to have to put it on hold for another year, but I didn't. She moved from her city with her backpack and her laptop to finish this book. So the book is about love, but just her, Margaret, she's the illustrator, she said it kept her going during the war. It kept her going. So I've never met her. We've only talked through emails, but it's just a piece of that Born to Love. It's like it all came together, because she could have easily gave up and said, no, I can't, because, they were in the middle of a war, but she finished my illustrations. So
that's amazing. That's an amazing story. I want to ask one more question about for Miss Brittanie. How does the library make decisions about which books to choose? How do they pursue diversity, or is it even a pursuit at all?
I do believe that diversity is a pursuit of our collection development team's job. It's also part of librarians and library associates' jobs as well. We all read our own genres, so we cover most of the field. So if we see something new coming and we request it, most likely the collection development team will order it for us in the library for at least our own branches. The library's policy for collecting materials is based on our own professional experience and also following policies like the ALA's intellectual freedom and right to read policies, because we do deeply believe in those policies, that everyone deserves the right to read, and they deserve to see themselves in their literature or materials that the library collects. Um, so we choose materials that have been professionally reviewed by services like School Library Journal and Kirkus Reviews. So it's much harder for self-published materials to get put into the collection, but we do try to collect those as well. We want to add materials to the collection that will represent the community. We try to keep it so that it's effectively representing our community. Trying to think. And we do collect materials that we know will probably cause controversy, like one of the books that was requested to be banned was All Boys Are Not Blue, but it's won literary awards and popularity awards and is highly recommended by other librarians and professionals in our field. So we collected it even though we knew that it might cause a problem. But we also collected things like 50 Shades of Grey. So it's not, we collect things that we believe that our community will want and that will represent the needs of our community. I'm trying to think. I give all credit for the library's collection in its efforts to be as diverse as possible to the collection development team. It's 3 wonderful ladies that all work very hard to make sure that we are collecting new and important information and works of literature that we believe will be valuable to the community. And then librarians will, as needed, weed things that just weren't popular or have misinformation, and that's our end of it on our side to make sure that the collection stays up to date and stays vital to the community.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Mhm.
And so I'll go into the library and I'll see at Black History Month, at the branch closest to my house, that there'll be books out that talk about things like the civil rights movement and things like that. How does the library, to your knowledge, go about promoting diversity all year long?
Oh, so yes. So as you said, during February, we of course put up our Black History Month display. We're gonna have some exhibits up as well. I can't remember if there will be any programming events in February for Black History Month, but I know several clubs will be there for their own personal events in February for Black History Month. And then the rest of the year, we also keep up with other heritage months. So like the Native American Heritage Month, we do that in November. We do the Hispanic Heritage Month in, I want to say it's October. And then we do one for Pride. We do one for Women's History. We keep up with all the months that are heritage or history, and we do our displays, and we do programming, and we support programming that supports those months. So we try to keep up with them all the time to do so. And then like I put up my Black History Month display yesterday for the teens so that it would be up a little longer because I just believe February is too short. So it'll be up for the rest of this month and all of February. And then we do that at all of the branches. So, and we do it in all of the departments. So there will be different ones for our nonfiction department. There will be ones for the fictional department, teens, children's, everybody will have a display for that. So we pull out all our best works and we polish them up and then put them on the shelf for people to see. I love children's because they'll have different themed activities before you go into the children's area for
Mhm.
each of those Heritage Months. And then lots and lots of books will be on display in children's. And then I try to do the best with my collection to keep up, but it's teens, so it's not as exciting as children's books.
I read some books when I was a late teen that I still remember to this day. And I wonder if there are books that any of you would recommend for folks with kids that you would like to put in the chat, or teenagers. I remember The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Soldier. I was like, I love this book. That book was great to me. It was like a whole lifestyle that I had never experienced, and the outcome of choices that you make when you're a teenager and how they might affect you for years to come. Doesn't mean I didn't make mistakes, but it was still a good book. And so
Yeah.
I just encourage anybody on the call today, if there's anything that you would recommend, put it in the chat so that other people might take note of it and make a trip to the library or on the Amazon. Thank you, Corey. And let's just share that knowledge. I have another question too for the callers on the Zoom today. This is one thing that I kind of brought up when we were talking about bringing this panel together, and it was books that we read as adults to become better business leaders, to become better nonprofit leaders, service providers in general, and the folks who come and talk to us at conferences and things like that. And quite often the books that were given to me or recommended to me, or the speakers who were invited after they had written a book, they were men, and they were generally about middle-aged, and they were white. And so I was wondering if any of you had recommendations for books for all of us that we could read that were not written by just that one segment of the population, but to give us a diverse view of what leadership looks like for people coming from different backgrounds. I know I have one on my nightstand that I haven't finished reading yet by Stacey Abrams, the woman who was running for public office in Georgia. You might remember her. And so her background, I'm in the background part of it, and it's pretty interesting. So but if there's anybody else that you would recommend, anything that you read, please share that with us so that we will all be able to broaden our view of the world. I know we're adults and we travel and we meet a lot of people, but it still doesn't mean that what's happening in literature couldn't make us even more knowledgeable and understanding about what the people we serve or the people who we do business with are going through. Rachel says we need diverse books. It's a great resource for finding titles. So she put that link there. Read anything you read by Stacey Abrams. Oh yeah, Believe in You Money by Jessica Norwood. Excellent. And the link for Tawana's book is also in the chat. And Corey added a book by Shel Silverstein, whose first book that I read kind of scared me because I was, but it's really for adults in a way. Sometimes you can get a lot from that book, whether you're a child or an adult. Is it just me, Rhoda? I was like, oh, I'm a little scared about what's happening. The tree is losing all parts of itself. But thank you for that. Continue to add to the chat. And so now I want to talk a little bit more about the pressure that Brittanie's library experienced to make changes in what they were doing and recommending. Did you receive any pushback from anybody, Tawana, when you were writing your book, maybe saying, oh, you should be focusing on this, or why are you including all of these folks? And was there any kind of pushback that you experienced?
Yeah, I had people telling me that I should make it a Black book. It should be for African American children because, you know, I'm African American, but I serve so many different children. I just don't serve African American children. I serve everybody's. I serve all children. So yeah, that was the biggest pushback. And I was kind of iffy. You know, I was kind of going back and forth, but I'm like, no, that's not how I grew up. I grew up seeing everybody. So I think everybody should be in this book.
Agreed. It's a beautiful book. Is there anything else that you want to share about what diversity means to you before I move on to my, really one of my last questions. It won't be a long meeting today. No?
Diversity, diversity, one word, just embrace. When you say diversity, the word comes to mind is just embrace. Let's embrace, we're not all the same. I mean, we're different, but we are the same. So we have to embrace other cultures and what other people bring, their cultures, in order to just make it in the world. We've got to embrace.
Agreed. Thank you. I want to ask y'all, Brittanie and Tejuania, what is it about books that might be able to, what is it that reading a book might be able to accomplish? That maybe attending a lecture or having a one-on-one even conversation. What might reading a book accomplish, literature, that these other platforms might not be successful at accomplishing?
Reading a book, for one, I hate, and I'm be honest, I don't know, you might not agree with me, but I hate those books on the tablet. There's nothing like doing this. There's nothing like opening it up and flipping the pages and looking at, the pictures. It's just nothing like holding it. And, if we don't be careful, these will become distinct one day if we don't be careful. And the smell, it's just something to me about the smell of an old book. You just can't, you're not going to get that anywhere else if it's not in your hand. That's just my personal take on that.
Yeah. Brittanie, do you have anything to add?
Yes. For me, for reading is it's taking myself out of myself and putting myself in that character's shoes and their experience through the story. I'm smelling what they're smelling. I'm touching it, seeing it, experiencing it. So that makes it more personal to me than just reading it as a third party observer. Reading helps put me in those shoes and that experience to make it more relevant to me than just watching it or hearing someone else speak about it. So I believe that reading helps create a deeper connection than just face-to-face or watching it on a documentary might do. So that's what reading does for me, which is why I avoid nonfiction to a degree that is scary, because I'm more terrified of something that can actually happen than a fantasy book in every reality. So that's why I love reading, but I will not get into nonfiction just so that I don't depress myself. So that's my take.
I understand. At this point, I want to ask from our attendees, are there any questions, anything you'd like to ask or throw out there? Rhoda?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for Tejuania. I was wondering, do you know if your book is available at local bookshops like the Haunted Bookshop, or if it is in any of our local libraries? And for Brittanie, I'm just curious. I think Diane said that you work at the Ben May. Is that correct?
Yes, I work at the downtown branch.
Okay. And you mentioned that there's 3 people who decide how to add to the collection, and I'm sure there's protocols and things that they go through. But I'm just curious to know, are they deciding just for the Ben May Library or for all of the libraries in Mobile, or how does that work?
They make the purchases for every library in the Mobile Public Library system.
Okay. And right now, it's hard to keep up with all the laws that are being passed, but Alabama doesn't have any laws yet, correct? Like Florida does, or do we have some of those laws that allow people to ban, to say they want to ban a book and have it be pulled?
As far as I'm aware, Alabama has not encroached on that area yet. They have not said that the state will have any decision-making power over books collected in the library just yet. We did have a small scuffle with the governor recently about the ALA. So some libraries have disassociated with them, but they have not passed any laws about what we may or may not include in the collection just yet.
Okay, thank you. And Tejuania?
I have books over in a few bookstores in Baldwin County. I have some books in a couple of libraries in elementary schools in Mobile, but it's kind of a challenge getting, this book into, our libraries. They kind of, make you go through this and that, and, it's kind of up to them. But I've, offered to donate my books just to be in libraries, and they always say they'll kind of get back with you. But I just put it wherever I can get it into. I'll that's how I do it. No
And when I
pressure.
get back to work, I will try to help them push that along because I would like to see it at the library.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else? Okay, so one other thing I would like to just put out there for all of our attendees today. When I looked up the definition of literature, yes, I'm 50 years old, but I looked up the definition of literature just to get an understanding. But so it has a few different definitions, and one of them is just a collection of all of the written and visual information that comes together on a particular subject. So I just wanted to encourage everyone in the literature that you produce for your organizations, be it your website, your brochures, your info cards, any banners and posters that you make, how representative are they? And I just wanted to ask for us all to pay attention. I know where I work over the years, things have shifted. When I first started doing this kind of work 20-something years ago, a lot of what was being put out was rose-colored, not a true picture of what was happening. And then it kind of shifted to like the economy changed, things are tough for everybody and stuff. And the literature and the photos really started to get dark, really toward what I might consider to have been what some people call poverty porn, just like not a good representation of what people are actually like that we were serving. And I can see things kind of have shifted away from that, but I do often feel like we should be careful that we're not pushing narratives that are not 100% true. Savior, white savior images, poverty porn images in literature, language that takes away from the power of the people who we are serving and diminishes them in any kind of way. So, and I think that might be a little different for all kinds of programs that are in this area, but it's something that we are paying more attention to. Even in my donation request letters, I'm kind of trying to be more careful and encourage donors to look at what they're giving to our organization as an investment in a family, and an investment in their future, and an investment in their community. And I've always believed in a hand up and not necessarily a hand out, but I just want to make sure that people realize that there is already something very valuable that is in place in this family, even though they are unhoused. So I'm just wanting to take a minute before I hop off of this call. And since I have the mic, encourage all of you to take a look at the literature at your organizations also. And with that, I want to thank our guests so much for coming and talking with us and sharing your stories and talking about this impactful work that you are doing. I appreciate it very much. I think I met Tejuania more than a year ago, and she's just been so patient with me, waiting till we get to this point. Is there any way that if anybody wanted to ask you for anything that they could contact you? Should they maybe reach out to Trista, or how would they reach you if they wanted to ask you a question?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to talk to me, I'll give you my number. It is 251-651-2192. My email address is kids, KIDZ, first, FIRST, 1995 @gmail.com.
Also, before we go, I do want to point out that Brian put a link to learn more about the book censorship issues in Alabama. It is readfreelyalabama.org. So that link is in the chat as well. And if there's anything else that anybody else would like to share, this is definitely the time. And I'm going to put the poll up while you guys are giving last thoughts.
Brittanie will be looking for you at the library.
Oh, thank you. I look forward to seeing you all.
Thank y'all so much. Bye, everybody. Have a good
Bye.
rest of the day and a good weekend. Stay warm.